I want to talk about something we don't talk about very often on the show, which is ratings and reviews, because there's a new way to get ratings on Spotify, and we're going to talk about that. But should you be spending a ton of time and energy trying to get ratings and reviews? Let's see. Welcome to Uncommonly More with Stacey Harris. I am Stacey. I'm the host of this show and the CEO of podcast production agency Uncommonly More. My team and I work with podcasters just like you to shift shows from frustrating time sucks to productive members of sales teams with professional, strategic podcast production. You know what? I think that's enough. Let's get into the show and we'll talk more there. Hello. Welcome to another episode. I'm super stoked to talk about podcast ratings and reviews today because they're a thing I get questions about from time to time. And I think they're a thing where we end up on either ends of a spectrum, and the answer is really kind of in the middle, which is that I don't care about reviews at all, and I'm never going to ask for them, and I'm obsessed with ratings and reviews, and I need new ones daily to feel like I'm a success as a podcaster. Neither of those is the answer. Just spoiler alert. It really is somewhere more in the middle. So I want to talk today about if they matter, how they matter. We're also going to talk about some tools you can use to be getting ratings and reviews, how I handle getting ratings and reviews for this show, and then, of course, how to use them. How can we be using these things so that we make them a little extra valuable? That's what we're going to dig into today. Before we dig into that, I want to let you know we are talking about the new show over on the Podcast Newsroom, and we're going to have a new episode releasing in the next week or so from when this releases, talking more about timeline and really getting into some of those early launch decisions, talking about listeners and format choices and how we make those decisions. So if you want to follow along with that launch, make sure you are signed up to receive the private podcast feed over at uncommonlymore.com/newsroom. Now, let's dig in to our show and ratings and reviews. I want to keep this one pretty short. And so I want to dig into this without a lot of unnecessary noise or fluff, but also I really want us to allow in the full spectrum of nuance with this conversation. So let's first talk about ratings and reviews, and let's stick with facts, right? First and foremost, ratings and reviews are not a universal thing. There is no one central place where a listener can leave a review for your show or rate your show. It's just not the way it is. In fact, many of the ways that your listeners will consume your show have absolutely no way to leave a rating or a review. And so, first and foremost, this cannot be the only way you are judging success or failure of your show. Just in the same way downloads alone are not enough to be an indicator of success or failure in your show. We need more data, right? And so think about what are the goals for your show. If they are to drive traffic to an opt-in or to a program or to conversations, then those are the goals we're looking at, not just ratings and reviews. But that said, they can be a really helpful tool for things like social proof. In some cases, they can be a really good way to get an indication of somebody really on board. I try and do my best to ask for ratings and reviews regularly because I want to offer another touch point, another place where there can be some reciprocity, where there can be some sort of energetic return, because I am aware, and you should be too, that not every person who listens to this podcast is going to become a client. They're just not. Not every single person who ever listens to the show, or even every single person who gets value from something they listen to the show, or even every single person who implements something and sees real fundamental change for themselves will at some point pay me. It's just not going to happen. Not every single person. And so I want there to be another way that people can return the energy, thank me, pay me in a way that can serve my show and can allow me to connect with them and see their sort of like thank you, right? And so ratings and reviews are a great way for that. And so I ask for them. I make sure that I'm saying, hey, here is this other opportunity to let me know this is helpful. Let me know this is valuable. And so ultimately, do they matter? Sure. Are they make or break for your show? Should they be the most important thing? No. Above all, they're really just evidence that someone is listening and this is why it was helpful. So go try it. But generally speaking, a rating or a review is not going to save your show from somebody who doesn't like your show. If somebody listens and it's just not for them, your ratings and reviews aren't going to change it. However, they might get somebody who is thinking about listening to actually give it a chance. So, yes, they matter, but maybe not as much as some people like to tell you they matter. Now, since they do matter, just are not the be-all, end-all, how do we handle them? What do we do with them? Well, I still ask for them. However, I don't think about them every day. So yes, at the end of every episode, there is a quick ask to leave a rating or review for the show. From time to time, you'll hear me ask about them, but I don't check them very often. I don't get emails every time I get one. About once a month when I do my audit for the show and how things are going, I go in and I look to see if there are any new ones. And once or twice a year, I make a real concerted effort to try and get some fresh ones. Because I do like to get a couple every year just so that they're not all, 2, 4, 5, 8 years old. Because the show is 8 years old. And so every once in a while, I make a concerted effort to really drive traffic to getting some reviews. By the way, if you've not left a review for the show, now's a great time to do it. And let me show you a really, really, really easy way to get people to a review. Because a lot of times when you say, hey, could you leave a rating or review? They're like, cool, but how do I do that? Because again, like I mentioned earlier, not every single platform has this functionality even available. And so do you mean go into your podcast app and your Apple device and go find the show and leave the information? Or do you mean on Castbox or Stitcher, or where do you mean, right? Well, if you have a single tool that you can send people to, then A, you can give them a place to go. Instead of just saying leave a rating or review and them being left to know what that means, you can say go to this place. Wouldn't that be amazing? It is. You've also heard me mention it if you've ever listened to the whole show. If you go to ratethispodcast.com/more, you will find an option to leave ratings and reviews on lots of different devices, lots of different platforms. Now, the platforms you see do vary by device. I believe you can only see Spotify on mobile devices, so Androids, iPhones, things like that. You will not see Spotify if you go to that URL on your desktop. However, you'll see Apple Podcasts, and you will see Castbox, and you'll see a few other options. And with that tool, you actually have the option of selecting or unselecting whatever platforms you're actually on. Now, I put the show literally in anywhere it can go because we're casting a wide net. We want to make sure we're available wherever you might be listening. And so I've got all of the options available because my show appears on all of those options. I love, 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 love this tool, not only because it gives me a really easy place to send people, but when I do a call to action, I'm able to wrap it up in the same format I would a sales one. And so there's no experiential difference in my calls to action. They're always consistently, here's what I'm asking you to do, here's why it's valuable, here's where you go to do it. That's always the format of those calls to action, and that doesn't change because I have this specific place to send people to. ratethispodcast.com/more. Here's what's great. You can have one of these too. Just go to ratethispodcast.com, leave off the more, and you can set your own up. The pricing is super affordable for most people who listen to this show. You'll want to go with the solo option. So it's $9 a month. It'll give you access for one podcast, but it's unlimited reviews. If maybe like me, you manage a couple of shows, you can use the growth plan, which is $29 a month. It gives you up to 10 podcasts. And of course, you can switch to annual pricing. The solo is $89 a year and growth is $289 a year. It's a super, super cool tool. The other reason I really like this is you don't necessarily see all of the reviews you're getting. If you are going into Apple Podcasts and looking at your reviews, you are only seeing the reviews from your country. This was actually super fun when I discovered it years and years and years ago, because I was like, oh, I have this, a couple of reviews. That's great. And then I found out that I had like just as many Canadian reviews as I had US reviews. We have had Australian reviews. We've had South African reviews. We've had some really cool stretches that we've gone into with this little show. And so it's really fun because with a tool like Rate This Podcast, it will pull them internationally. So you can see all of the reviews you're getting. And again, not just for Apple Podcasts, but from wherever they're synced with, including Spotify. Now, Spotify is not reviews. Spotify is only ratings. So you will not see text sort of feedback reviews. You will only see the rating on a scale of 5 stars. But again, you're able to sort of dashboard see the feedback you're getting in one place, which is really, really, really helpful. You can also see some detailed analytics as far as like how many people are actually clicking over and going to that link, where they were, where they came from, so that you can get some solid data on what's happening with your reviews, how many people are showing up but not like leaving them. It's really helpful to give you a different perspective. All right. So again, ratethispodcast.com is that tool. And if you haven't left a review for this show, come on over to, that's right, ratethispodcast.com/more. And that's how you can leave a review for this show. Now, we've got the reviews. We are using calls to action in our shows, but there's other ways to get these. And quite frankly, my favorite way to get them is to use them to get them. And so when we start talking about how do we use these reviews, I think it's so, so important that we're having a conversation about asking for them outside of your show. One of the things that we do whenever we really put some energy behind getting some ratings and reviews, sort of freshening things up, you will see this at some point in 2022. Honestly, probably February and I don't know, August, late summer, because they're just times where it works really well for me to have this kind of push. You'll see on social, we'll be sharing reviews we've gotten before. We'll turn them into graphics, we'll use screenshots, whatever it may be, but we'll leave a review pointing people to leaving a review. Because oftentimes, when you're listening to this show, or when your listeners are listening to your show, they're not in a place where they can really go head over to ratethispodcast.com/your show and leave a review. It's not going to happen. I have had people doing all sorts of things while they listen to the show. Breastfeeding newborns at 2 a.m, not a great time to try to type up a review on your smartphone. We've had people train for races, and we've had people move cross country, and we've had people, oh God, what else? I'm trying to think of other weird instances people have lived in the show, but also like dog walks and at the gym and on your Peloton or whatever. I don't think anyone's actually listening to the show on their Peloton. They're probably listening to a Peloton instructor, right? I don't know. I don't have a Peloton. I'm not cool. I'm not cool, guys. But wherever you might be, it might not be super easy to head to a URL and leave a review right then, or go into their podcast player and leave a rating right then. But when they have their phone in their hand and they're looking on Instagram and they follow me because they love this show, are in a position to do it, then. And so use these as a way to get more of these. Also, use them as a way to drive new listeners. So again, finding these on social or including them in your email when you're driving traffic to podcast episodes. Maybe you're segmented a portion of your list who doesn't usually click on the links, or who you're not sure if they listen to the show. And so you send them a version of the email with a, hey, this is what so-and-so had to say about the impact our show had for them. There are a lot of ways you can use these. So be using them, not just as social proof to get more. Hey, here, other people have left reviews, you should too. But also as a way to get listeners. Hey, other people have listened to the show and it was really helpful. You should listen too. So you can do that with social graphics on something like Instagram. You could be shouting them out on something like a video in TikTok or Instagram Reels. You could be just sharing screenshots of them on something like LinkedIn. You could be talking about them in your show. This has been a long time loved tactic, is to share reviews as a way of getting people to leave reviews inside of your show. I don't love this, honestly. I think it can be a cool way to shout people out early in a show, but I would rather see repurposing them on social, going into places outside of the podcast to drive people to the podcast instead of being in the podcast trying to drive someone, quite frankly, away from the podcast, because no one who's listening who isn't the person you're shouting out cares. They're already here. All right? So that's what I want you to be looking at. Again, I said I wanted to keep this quick and dirty. The biggest takeaway I want you to leave with is setting up ratethispodcast.com so that you have a central link to go send people to and to go review these, so that you give this precisely the amount of attention it deserves, which is not an every episode, I'm obsessed with it kind of thing, but it goes into your quarterly, monthly, annual, biannual, however often you do an audit of your show, it goes in there. I'll be honest, we review the show monthly because we look at stats and download numbers and things like that. I don't look at my reviews every month. Maybe once a quarter, generally speaking, twice a year when I'm doing bigger planning. And that's because I want to know what feedback there is. And generally right after there is when I go, wow, I should really ask for reviews more often. And so I go do it because I don't want the central message of this show to be, go leave me a review. I don't want that to be your takeaway at the end of every episode. What I want it to be is, hey, is now the time to hand over your production and get some strategic support on your team, in your life, and support you in getting things done in a more effective, but also a lot more fun way. Cool. Then come join us at uncommonlymore.com/podcast production. That's the URL I want to be sending people to. That's the place I want to be getting them to take action. So yes, reviews are fantastic and helpful, and they certainly matter a little, but they're not the most important goal for your show. And you got to keep that in mind. I hope this was helpful. I would love to hear from you. So head over to Instagram and send me a DM with your takeaway and the link to your Rate This Podcast review page so that I can go leave you a review and a rating and I can find some new shows. That'll be fun. So head over to Instagram.com/uncommonlymore to drop a DM to us, and I will see you next week. If you made it to this point of the show and you still happen to be listening, which statistically is unlikely, I want to say thank you for listening. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I want to hear from you. So reach out on social or via email and let me know what actions you're going to take from today's episode, because honestly, that's why we produce this show. That's why I record this show. It's why my team does all the work to release this show, is so that we can help you. You can help make a difference in your show and consequently in your business. If you haven't left a review for the show, head over to ratethispod.com/more. It's an easy way to show some love to the show and also help us reach more podcasters who are looking for the same kind of support you were looking for. If you have any suggestions or ideas or thoughts you would like me to address on the show, be sure to reach out. Again, like I say a lot, this is the start of the conversation, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say.